Okay, so welcome to AS Economics for Ilm Learn. Now, this is going to be essentially a video presentation of the actual PowerPoint presentation, which is on the Ilm Learn site. So you may have actually seen this in PowerPoint with voiceover, but this is just a video recording of that with some extra comments for you as well. So, CIE AS Economics course and the exam structure. So really what we'll be learning, and obviously the exams and the exam structure you'll be taking. Now, obviously it's a 2-year course. Let me play what I've said earlier.
So the course will be 2 years. The first year obviously will be AS year, and you'll get an independent qualification, your AS level, after that 1 year. So exams will be taken in May-June period. So we'll have generally 2 terms to really get through most of the course before some time's allocated for revision. Once you decide to do the A2 course as well, then your AS will contribute to half, 50% of your A2 grade. Okay.
Okay, so hopefully that is understood. We'll be doing the AS course this year.
So as you can see, there will be 2 examinations for the AS year. It is weighted, paper 1 is weighted at 40% of the total qualification, while paper 2 will be 60%. You'll notice paper 1 is multiple choice, 30 multiple choice questions. Although they may seem quite nice and easy, they are very difficult indeed. So a lot of practice will be needed for the multiple choice. Paper 2, you will need to write some short answer questions as well as an essay, so an extended essay. So different skills being required from you there.
Okay, so hopefully that is understood there. You can see paper 3 and paper 4 are there. That's what you'll be undertaking in your second year for your actual A-levels. So the actual exams, not too long, multiple choice 1 hour, paper 2, the essay and data response, 1.5 hours. So it's not too daunting, hopefully, when you get to start practicing for the exams. Okay, so what is economics? It's a social science subject.
Now, economics is considered a social science. Now, what that means is that it deals with human society and the relationships between people in our society. So we often look at human behavior and why we do what we do. Now, within economics, we split into microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, microeconomics is, studies the individual human being. Now, what the individual does and their individual decisions, and obviously the consequences of those on the world around us, our scarce resources, and each other. Key topics for microeconomics is really supply and demand, the kind of footbed of most microeconomic theories. Now, macroeconomics looks at economics on a much larger scale, looking at the country or economy as a whole and seeing the implications of any macroeconomic changes, such as change in interest rates or the rise of prices, generally speaking.
Okay, so in terms of how we're studying microeconomics and macroeconomics, the first 3 units that we'll be doing out of the 5 will be microeconomics, and then the macroeconomics will be unit 5 and 6. So we'll be gearing more towards macroeconomics towards the latter part of the year.
Now here is the syllabus for AS and A2 economics. Now this year, obviously the AS year will be looking at all of these units and the subtopics within the units. We will be going in order from Unit 1, Basic Economic Ideas and Resource Allocation, through to 2, 3, 4 and then 5. The PowerPoint will cover all of these subtopics within each unit, and they'll be clearly divided and labelled.
Okay, so if we have a little bit more of a look at what we'll be studying. So we'll start off with the reason economics exists is because of the economic problem. Now that is obviously that we have limited resources on the planet, and our job as economists is really decide how are we going to use those resources. We're going to try to use them as well as we can, and then we've got to decide what do we make with these resources, who are we going to make them for, and how are we going to make them. So they're kind of like the questions that everybody has to answer, really, from producers, the businesses, as well as consumers, because they often decide what gets made, etc., with these resources. So we're looking at that and what this idea of opportunity cost that arises, so we may have to make choices when we have resources competing over the same possible production, for example. So then we're going to look at, well, if resources are scarce, how can we show this in a diagram? In economics, we're going to look at quite a lot of diagrams. So the PPF diagram, or PPC, Production Possibility Curve, and that's going to demonstrate how we use our resources and the kind of consequences of the choices we make. So that'll be the first kind of diagram we'll be looking at and analyzing. Then we're going to look at actually goods and services. What type of goods and services do we have, and we can classify them into different types based on the kind of economic theory behind those goods and services. So, for example, private goods, which can be easily sold, made profit from, and then this problem of public goods, which doesn't really quite work. The market can't quite provide them due to problems such as what we call the free rider problem. And then those kind of goods are goods that government has to provide. So street lighting, for example, lighthouses, national defense. So that's really what we're going to look at the beginning. Then we're going to look at actually what is probably the core part of AS economics, which is the price system, supply and demand. That is the market economy. That's what the capitalist system is based on. So we're going to look at diagrams, supply and demand diagrams, movement of the curves, causes of the movement of the curves, and then we're going to look at this complicated issue of elasticity. So if prices do go up, demand for goods go down, but by how much, and what can cause demand to kind of go up a little bit or a large amount. So we'll be looking at those kind of issues. Moving on, once we looked at some reasons why the market doesn't work, supply and demand doesn't work, we realize the government needs to actually step in and intervene. So they might start taxing, providing subsidies, introduce minimum prices or maximum prices for goods, or they might actually just give goods for free completely. They might start owning particular industries, nationalization, or maybe they'll think the actual market system can provide the goods in a much more efficient and higher quality manner, so they'll privatize those industries. So we're going to start looking at those. Moving on to Unit 4 and 5, it's really the macroeconomics at that point. So we're going to start looking at the country as a whole, or the economy as a whole, and how much everybody in the economy is buying, aggregate demand. if they're buying too much, maybe the prices generally of most things start going up. We call that inflation, so we're going to start looking at those. Exchange rates, why that fluctuates and the reasons behind it. And obviously why countries trade different goods and why some countries like the UK trade services like finance with some countries like China that essentially would trade with the UK but with cheap consumer goods. And why is that? Then we're going to look at why countries might actually look to start protecting their industries and protecting their industries against trade, and we call that protectionism. Lastly, when the government wants to try and improve the macroeconomic situation in the economy, they have different tools. So we're going to look at these tools. One being fiscal policy. So can they change taxation? Can they spend more money? Other one will be monetary policy. Can they start changing the money supply? Increase, decrease interest rates. This idea of quantitative easing, almost printing money. And then supply side policies, which is a longer term improvement of the economy as a whole. And obviously, how can they start improving or correcting the balance of payments equilibrium? So, for example, do we import too much and export too little? How can we start improving that situation? And obviously, how can we start improving the situation when it comes to inflation? Are prices going up too quickly? That's very damaging for the economy. So how can the government try and calm things down? So in a nutshell, that's really what we're going to be studying for the year, and we'll be going in sequence. Okay, so here are the assessment objectives, the skills that we'll be looking at. I mentioned a few things earlier here.
Now, a key area of success when it comes to this level of education is showing your skills and demonstrating these skills. Now, how your papers are marked is by these 3 and 4 assessment objectives. First of all, you've got your knowledge and understanding. So that is understanding the content and obviously knowing key terms, meanings, definitions. Now, assessment objective 2, application, is using that content and understanding of theory and applying it to, let's say, a certain situation, certain context, and certainly the kind of case studies that will be within your multiple choice questions, but certainly within your paper 2 longer case study questions. Now, the higher order skills, assessment objective 3 and 4, that's analysis and evaluation, they are skills which will develop, but they are the skills that really will get you the higher marks and are reserved for the harder questions.
And we'll be developing these skills slowly through the year. And the key higher order ones of analysis and evaluation do take a bit of time, but with the assessments and the activities we'll be undertaking, hopefully you'll develop these skills quickly. So this is a relationship between assessment objectives and the qualifications.
Now this shows the relationship between the assessment objectives and the AS level versus the A2 level. As you can see, they are equally weighted in terms of AS and A2. But as you can also see that 30% of the marks are for your knowledge and understanding of the theory, and the other big assessment objective is your analysis of that theory. Can you say what the consequences are of your point in an economic situation or economic context? Now this shows a relationship between assessment objectives and the actual components. So within your individual exam papers. So paper 1, the AS level paper 1, you can see that for the multiple choice, they are testing your knowledge and understanding to a much greater amount, and very little opportunity for them to really test your evaluation skills. Now that comes a lot more on paper 2, where you can see 25% of the marks are allocated for your evaluation skills, 30% for your analysis skills, 20% for application, and 25% for your knowledge. So you can see the differences there between the papers, paper 1 and paper 2 this year, and paper 3 and paper 4 next year, where there's an even greater weighting towards the higher order skills of analysis and evaluation.
Okay, so that is the kind of run through of the introduction to economics for ILMLearn. So I hope that we're going to get to know each other pretty well over the coming weeks and months, and obviously please drop me an email once the course, once you've really embed yourself with the course, and we can start really progressing with AS Economics. So thank you very much.